Nobody saw this coming. The Terra Twins are back and Rhea Ripley has issued a warning. To understand the gravity of this moment, we have to slow down. We have to strip away the bright lights and the loud pyrotechnics and look at the silence that fell over the arena the moment it happened. In the world of wrestling, noise is usually the currency of success. But sometimes, it is the silence that tells the true story. It is the silence of realization, the collective intake of breath from thousands of people who suddenly understand that the landscape has shifted beneath their feet. When Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley stood side by side again, it wasn't just a reunion of friends, it was the reformation of a siege engine. For months, the wrestling world has felt fragmented, with alliances breaking and trust dissolving like smoke. But seeing them together, shoulder to shoulder, signaled a return to a specific kind of dominance, a dominance born from the shadows. However, the joy of the reunion was short-lived, cut down instantly by the cold reality of business, because a reunion like this always demands a target. A weapon is useless unless it is pointed at something, and that is where the narrative took a sharp, terrifying turn. Rhea Ripley, the Eradicator, didn't just celebrate. She looked into the camera, her eyes piercing through the lens, straight into the living rooms of millions, and delivered a message. It wasn't screamed, it wasn't shouted in a fit of rage. It was spoken with the terrifying calm of someone who knows exactly what they are capable of. She issued a warning, and while she didn't scream the names, the context clues, the history, and the subtle gestures made it undeniably clear who was in the crosshairs. The House of Black, specifically, the Dark Patriarch, Aleister or Malika Black, and the Queen of the Underworld, Zelina Vega. Why them? Why now? This is the question that hung in the air like a heavy fog. The reunion of the Terra Twins is an emotional high for the fans, but for the locker room, it is a tactical disaster. Rhea's warning suggested that there is unfinished business, a debt that needs to be collected. It implies that while the House of Black has been sitting comfortably on their throne of shadows, the true nightmares were simply biding their time. Imagine the atmosphere backstage immediately following that statement. The production crew rushing about, the other wrestlers whispering in corners, checking their phones, watching the monitors. Everyone knows that when titans collide, the collateral damage is immense. The specific phrasing Rhea used, hinting at taking back what belongs to the darkness, was a direct challenge to the ownership of the macabre that Aleister and Zelina have cultivated for years. This wasn't just a promo, it was a declaration of war on a psychological level. It was Rhea telling the world that there is only room for one dark dynasty in this industry. The reunion was the spark, but the warning was the gasoline. And now, the fire is beginning to spread, inching closer and closer to the doorstep of Zelina Vega and Aleister Black. The calm before the storm has officially ended. The twins have not just returned to participate, they have returned to conquer. And the first kingdom they intend to burn seems to be the one built by Black. Let us transport ourselves now, away from the roaring arena where Rhea Ripley stood, and into the conceptual space occupied by Aleister Black and Zelina Vega, in the theater of our minds. Picture a dimly lit room, adorned with the symbols of the occult and the quiet dignity of dangerous people. How does a message like that land when you are the one being hunted? For years, Aleister Black has been the predator. He sits cross-legged in the center of the ring, a figure of stoic intimidation. He doesn't react to noise. He creates fear through stillness. Zelina Vega, by his side, has always been the architect, the voice that cuts through the silence, the manager who maneuvers the pieces on the board with precision. They are a unit built on the premise that they are untouchable because they understand darkness better than anyone else. But Rhea Ripley's warning shatters that illusion of safety. Zelina Vega is not someone who scares easily. We have seen her stand up to giants. We have seen her take physical risks that defy logic. But there is a history with Rhea Ripley that cannot be ignored. It is a history of violence and domination. When Zelina hears that the Terra Twins are back together, she knows that the math has changed. It is no longer a fair fight. It is no longer about strategy. It is about survival. Imagine the conversation between Aleister and Zelina in the aftermath. It wouldn't be frantic. These are not people who panic. It would be a conversation of cold calculation. Aleister, staring into the middle distance, analyzing the threat. He knows that Damian Priest is a mirror image of his own physical capabilities, tall, agile, struck from the same mold of gothic intensity. But he also knows that Rhea is the expert. The trouble they are in is not just about losing a match. It is about losing their mystique. The House of Black relies on being the scariest entity in the room. If the Terror Twins Rhea and Damian expose them, if they run through them, the aura of the house is broken. This is the trouble alluded to in our story. It is an existential threat. There is also the emotional component of Zelina Vega. She has built herself up from nothing, fighting for every inch of respect. To be called out, to be warned so publicly, puts her in a corner. If she doesn't respond, she looks weak. If she does respond, she walks into a trap. It is a classic checkmate scenario. We must also consider the isolation. The Terror Twins have the momentum of the entire world behind them right now. Their reunion is a feel-good story wrapped in leather and spikes. Aleister and Zelina are on an island. The shadows they usually use to hide are now being illuminated by the spotlight Rhea has cast upon them. For the first time in a long time, the predators look like prey. You can imagine Aleister watching the footage of the warning, replaying it, looking for a weakness in Rhea's eyes, and finding none. You can imagine Zelina pacing the floor, her mind racing through contingencies. The calm demeanor they present to the public is likely a mask for a very turbulent reality behind the curtain. They are in trouble because the one thing you cannot fight is a force of nature, and right now, the reunited Terror Twins are a hurricane making landfall. The House of Black must now reinforce its windows and brace for impact, knowing that the roof might get torn off regardless of their preparations. The story of a conflict is never just about the people in the ring. It is about the millions of people watching, typing, and speculating. The moment Rhea Ripley issued her warning to the likes of Aleister and Zelina, the digital world erupted into what can only be described as a riot of theories and emotions. This is the modern battlefield. Before a single punch is thrown, the war is fought in the comment sections and on the timelines of social media. The fans immediately began to dissect the history. They pulled up old clips, grainy footage from years ago where these paths had crossed before. They analyzed the body language of Zelina Vega from archives, comparing it to the confidence of Rhea Ripley today. The trouble that Aleister and Zelina are in is amplified by this public perception. In the court of public opinion, the verdict was swift. The House of Black is in danger. Fans started creating fantasy booking scenarios, visualizing the matches, and almost all of them ended with the Terror Twins standing tall. This creates a psychological pressure cooker. Imagine being Zelina Vega, checking your phone, and seeing thousands of people already mourning your defeat before you have even stepped into the arena. It creates a suffocating atmosphere. The narrative being spun by the community is one of inevitability. There is a sense that Rhea and Damian are on a destiny run, and that Aleister and Zelina are merely the tragic obstacles in their path. This fan sentiment bleeds into reality. It affects how the wrestlers carry themselves. It affects the merchandise sales. It affects the perceived value of the characters. But there is a deeper layer here, a ghost of the past. Fans reminded everyone that these four individuals share a similar DNA in terms of wrestling philosophy. They are all alternative, they all represent the outcasts, the metalheads, the goths. This isn't just a fight, it's a civil war within the counterculture of wrestling. The fans feel this deeply. They feel torn. We see threads debating loyalty. I've been with the House of Black since day one. One user writes, but I can't bet against mommy. This division creates an electric tension. It means that when they finally do meet, the crowd won't just be cheering. They will be agonizing. The trouble is also about relevance. In the fast-moving current of social media, if you are on the losing side of a feud with the top stars, you risk being washed away. Zelina and Aleister aren't just fighting for wins. They are fighting to remain main characters in a story that is quickly pivoting to focus solely on the Terror Twins. The digital riot also serves as a mirror. It forces Aleister and Zelina to see themselves as the world sees them, currently, as the underdogs. For a faction that prides itself on dominance, being labeled the underdog is a bitter pill to swallow. The memes, the video essays, the tweets, they all paint a picture of impending doom. And while Aleister Black often preaches about the truth of the internet right now is that the Terror Twins have eclipsed the house. This chapter of the story is about the weight of expectation. The world expects the House of Black to fall. The world expects Rhea Ripley to crush Zelina Vega. Living under that weight, trying to breathe while the digital world piles dirt on your grave, is a struggle that requires immense mental fortitude. The fans have set the stage, lit the lights, and are waiting for the execution. Let's step behind the curtain now. Let's strip away the characters of the Eradicator and the Dark Father and look at the human beings inhabiting these roles. And the very real professional pressure cooker they are standing in. In the world of professional wrestling, a warning like the one Rhea gave is a gift, but it is also a heavy burden. It is a gift because it means you are in the spotlight. It means the company trusts you to be in the most important storyline of the month. But it is a burden because you now have to deliver. For Aleister and Zelina, the trouble isn't just fictional. The trouble is the pressure to match the intensity of the two hottest stars in the industry. Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest are currently operating at a level that is rare. They have the Midas touch. Everything they do turns to gold. For Aleister and Zelina, stepping into the ring with them means they have to elevate their game to a level they perhaps haven't reached in years. There is a backstage politics element to this story as well. When a faction like the Terror Twins reunites, they suck up all the oxygen in the room. They get the most screen time, the best promo segments, the most elaborate entrances. The House of Black, which relies on atmosphere and distinct presentation, is at risk of becoming the other dark group. In the corporate hierarchy of the show, redundancy is a career killer. They cannot afford to be the Diet Coke version of the Terror Twins. They have to be distinct. They have to be dangerous in a different way. Imagine the locker room interactions. The polite nods as they pass each other at catering, but the underlying tension is palpable. These are professionals, yes, but they are also competitive artists. Zelina Vega knows that a feud with Rhea is her chance to prove she belongs at the absolute top of the card, not just as a manager, but as a performer. But if she fails, if the chemistry isn't there, if the fans don't buy it, that is where the real trouble lies. Aleister, a veteran with a deeply respected mind for the business, understands the stakes better than anyone. He knows that in this industry, you are only as good as your last feud. If the Terra Twins run over them effortlessly, it damages the House of Black brand permanently. They need to make the Terra Twins bleed metaphorically and perhaps literally, to prove they are peers, not stepping stones. The warning Rhea issued was a professional challenge. Step up, or get stepped on. We also have to consider the physical toll. Working with powerhouse athletes like Rhea and Damian hurts. The style is hard-hitting, the trouble is physical. Zelina Vega is significantly smaller than Rhea Ripley. The physics of that confrontation are daunting. Every bump, every slam, every moment of impact is going to carry a high price. So, beyond the flashing lights and the screaming fans, there is a quiet, tense reality. For people preparing to go to war, knowing that the outcome will dictate the trajectory of their careers for the next year. The writers are drafting the scripts, the producers are planning the spots, but the performers are the ones who have to carry the weight. The House of Black is in trouble because they are standing on the tracks, and the train is coming. They have to decide now. Do they try to derail the train, or do they get run over? As we reach the conclusion of this narrative, we find ourselves standing at the precipice of the inevitable collision. The warning has been given. The targets have been marked. The fans have chosen their sides. The atmosphere is thick with the scent of ozone and sulfur. We can see the path forward clearly. There will be confrontations. There will be moments where Zelina Vega tries to use her cunning to outmaneuver Rhea's brute force. There will be moments where Aleister Black's striking attempts to chop down the towering tree that is Damian Priest. It will be a spectacle of gothic grandeur, a clash of titans that fits perfectly into the mythology of modern wrestling. But here is where we must pause. Here is where we must look deeper than the surface-level good versus evil, or winner versus loser, dynamic. Because in stories like this, the ending is rarely as simple as one side destroying the other. The twist in this story, the deep, reflective realization that adds meaning to the chaos, is that this trouble is actually a salvation. Think about it. Before this warning, the House of Black was floating. They were respected, yes, but they were somewhat aimless. They were dangerous, but they lacked a crusade. By targeting them, by issuing this dire warning, Rhea Ripley has actually done Aleister and Zelina the greatest favor possible. She has made them relevant again. She has forced them to wake up. The twist is that the Terra Twins and the House of Black are not opposites. They are two sides of the same coin. They need each other. Light cannot exist without shadow, and a hero cannot exist without a villain of equal magnitude. The trouble that Zelina and Aleister are in is the fire that will reforge them. In the end, even if they lose the match, even if they take the beatings, they win. They win because they have been invited to the main stage. They win because they are part of the story that everyone is talking about. The warning wasn't a death sentence. It was an invitation to immortality. So, as we watch the drama unfold, as we see the spears and the spin kicks and the dark rituals, remember this. Conflict is intimacy. By declaring war on the House of Black, Rhea Ripley has validated their existence. She has acknowledged them as the only threat worthy of her attention. The final image of this story isn't one of destruction, but of elevation. We see the House of Black, battered perhaps, bruised maybe, but standing taller than they have in years. They are in trouble, yes, but it is the kind of trouble that builds legends. And sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can do to a sleeping beast is wake it up. The Terra Twins are back. The warning has been issued. But perhaps, just perhaps, it is the Terra Twins who should be worried about what they have just unleashed. Because a cornered animal fights with nothing to lose, and the House of Black has just been given a reason to burn the whole world down.